Okay, so it looks like we're live. Good morning and welcome to the 741 channel and Tom's Radio Room Show channel. We're going to be simultaneously live streaming this morning, both on my channel and on Tom's, just as an experiment to see what happens. This morning we're going to be talking about some radio-related topics, ham radio, shortwave radio, some other kinds of gadgets that are sort of related, and maybe listening conditions, that kind of a thing. So grab a coffee and join us if you're live. If not, well, that's okay. Grab whatever beverage is appropriate for the time of day you're watching, and hope you enjoy. So if you're on my channel and you're not familiar with Tom's over here on my left. He runs the Tom's Radio Room Show. Hamrad88 is the channel name. He does all kinds of stuff with broadcast and shortwave radios, antennas, and that sort of thing. So check him out if you're interested. I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
All righty. This is quite an experiment for us to go live on two different channels. And if this works out, this will be pretty cool. And being able to stream both Rob's channel and my channel at the same time. If you will, if we've got anybody watching live, please put in comments about our video and our audio, how we're doing. And so this should be kind of exciting.
Yeah, like I said, let us know in the chat if the audio is good, video is good, or bad, or whatever kind of a thing. So let's see. We've got fans, alarms, and lighting is in there first. Good morning. Thanks for stopping in. So let's see. What should we do first? So what I'm going to do, I guess, is I'm going to switch views, and I'll share the agenda just so people know what we have in mind that we want to talk about. Hopefully you can see that, Tom. So you can see.
I can see it.
So the first thing that we always like to start our shows off with is we like to let everybody know that we're not experts. We're not up here trying to tell you guys that everything that we say is the absolute truth, or what we're saying is what you should do. We're just a couple of guys that enjoy radio and talking with radio with each other, and hopefully you guys enjoy the same. So again, we're not experts. Take everything that we say here with a grain of salt and add it to your own decision process when you're thinking about radios and that kind of a thing. So we're going to talk about, first off, we're going to talk about some new radios on the market. Tom's been keeping his finger on the pulse, so to speak. There's some new stuff he was telling me about the other day, actually, that looked kind of interesting. So he's going to show some things about that. And I know I've got a couple of questions. Hopefully you guys do too. So we'll see what's what. So let us know in the chat if you have any questions about what Tom's showing. And then we might briefly talk about Christmas deals, things like that. But this isn't so much a shopping show as it is just a kind of a general roundtable discussion. So, but if we happen to see some prices, we'll let you know. Or if you have anything that you've come across, let us know in the chat. The next thing we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about solar conditions. Again, Tom's keeps an eye on that. And as a lot of people know, we've had an increase in solar activity, sunspots, and that sort of thing. So the listening conditions, at least for DX, have gotten better over the last month or two. So Tom's got some info on that we'll take a look at. And then after that, I think we're just going to talk a little bit about some radio plans and projects that we have coming up in the future that you might be able to see on our channels, that kind of a thing. And then we'll take any questions or wrap up or any topics that you guys feel that you want to talk about. So before I turn it over to Tom, let me check the chat. Let's see, fans, alarms, and lighting. He says it was his friend's birthday yesterday. Well, that's great. Let's see, Mickey M audio says the audio sounds fine. Video is good. And KB1WQK is in there. My sister is watching. So thanks for joining us. We want to get you on a show one of these days. Absolutely. And talk about a lady's perspective in terms of the radio hobby. I think that would be interesting. So one of these days we'll get you on here with us when we get our act together. Okay. So let me turn it over to Tom. He might have some chat activity that he wants to talk about in his stream. Like I said, he's streaming on his channel too. And then see if he's got any comments on the presentation here. So
okay, the one thing that confused me is I'm looking at my chat screen and I'm not seeing what Rob was talking about. I'm like, what's going on here? Well, it's his stream he was talking about, the chat. And I'm looking at my stream in the chat, of which we have a comment from John 1788 that says, so far, so good. That's encouraging.
Yep. Okay, so
go ahead.
any comments on the agenda before we jump into it, or?
Oh, the one thing about the agenda is feel free to interrupt us.
Yeah,
if you
by all
got a
means.
question, ask it in the comments right away so we can address it while we're talking about that particular topic. Or if you have something totally different than we have on the agenda, that's fine too.
Yeah, it's a sort of a round table. We just pick these things to kind of get the conversation started. So if you guys have anything that you want to discuss, feel free. So I'm going to stop this screen share for now and send it back to you. So go ahead, Tom, and take it away. What do we got for new radios out there that we should be looking at?
Okay, let me see if I can do a screen share here.
Yep, you should be able to, hopefully.
I won't show you anything embarrassing. And it will take me a little bit to get it to what I want to show you, which is not that. Couple of radios that I've been watching that are brand new from Texan. Unfortunately, many of them, and see, I can't get rid of this bar here, but I'll put it down here out of the way. They're not available. Most of them are not available on Amazon, but they are available on like this website here, which I've gotten radios from before. They do a good job of fast delivery and response to your question. And this radio is the new Texan Pl-990x. And it's $235. Not many people have this. Matter of fact, there's only a limited number of people who have done any reviews on this. Jill's up in Canada, he's done a bunch of shows. He's had his for quite a while. And the biggest thing that he pointed out about the negative is the sync detector on this radio, like the other Texan radios, does not work at all. It's just garbage. And he was pretty emphatic about how bad it was. But he says otherwise, it's a great radio. The audio is fantastic. Like I say, you can check out his show. He's done a bunch of videos where he just has the radio listening to shortwave, and he really likes this radio. If you have, for instance, and this is what he mentioned too, if you have, for instance, the PL-880, the PL-680, this radio is not tremendously better. So he advises that if you have one of those radios, you really don't need to go out and buy this radio unless you just want another radio. But if you don't, then don't opt for those radios. Get this radio because the audio is fantastic. Now, the PL-680 and the PL-880 is about half the price of this radio. So this one is kind of pricey. It is new. There's only a few places you can get it. I do believe Amazon has this one. They don't have the 330, which is the other one, which is the smaller one. Again, came out about the same time, which kind of looks like the PL-310 ET.
Does the 330 do sideband, or is that AM only?
Yeah, I believe it does single sideband.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the advantage of both of these radios over some of the other radios. Now, the 680 does single sideband too.
Right.
And I can say it's about half the price. So the other one that I have no information and that came out about the same time is this one right here. And that is the the H-501 with dual speakers. This has dual speakers and it looks fantastic. It looks like basically a PL-880 with the speaker stuck on this side and some extra knobs.
Yeah, when I look at that radio, it almost reminds me of those old Sony radios from the 90s a little bit. It's got that kind of styling to it.
But as you can see, and this one's available on AliExpress, it's $303.
Yeah, that's a little pricey.
Kind of pricey.
That's a little bit pricey, but I guess if you're in the market, and I would imagine if these are brand new, they've just come out, that prices will start to drop at some point here.
Yeah, you can see that this has actually been reduced from $345.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But there's not much information on this one. There is one YouTuber, I think he's over in Europe someplace, and he's got one, he's had it for a while, and he's done some videos, but he doesn't do the ones I watched, he didn't have any commentary. So it wasn't really a review, it was just showing you the quality of the radio and how it works and how it sounds listening to shortwave. So those are two radios that I'm interested in, but right now I'm kind of on the fence. If this one comes down a little bit, maybe the fact that the synchronous detection still does not work, to me, it's not much of an upgrade from my PL-680.
Yeah, I hear you. I've got the 660, and that's a pretty good radio. I like it,
Yes.
but like you said, I don't know that that's enough for me to upgrade.
No, that's the thing. I think if you already have the 660, the 680, the 80, unless you just got money you want to burn, I don't think you need to invest in these new ones.
Yeah.
Maybe you could possibly sell your old radio and then take the money and get one of these newer ones.
Yeah, that's one trick, I suppose.
Okay, so that's what I had on the new radios.
Well, before you move on, the one thing that kind of caught my eye when we were talking the other day was that sort of that SDR type radio that's over there. There's a little thumbnail for it on the right. We were talking a little bit about those. Are you going to talk about those after, or is that it?
No, we can address them now.
Yeah, take a quick peek at that.
Okay, I've got it on another tab.
Oh, you do have it. Oh, we can wait. I don't want to throw you off.
There it is.
Okay.
We can talk this now or later.
It's up to you. I didn't mean to throw you off here.
Well, since we're there, we'll talk about it now. Now,
Okay.
This is something very new, and I don't know how to pronounce it. There's the name of these. That's the basic board itself, and it's an SDR with a display, and it comes in many forms. Like here's some more over here.
Yeah.
I'll go on those in a minute. This is the bare bones one that's just over $100, and it's an SDR. It tunes. There's two versions. One version tunes from 50 kilohertz to 200 megahertz, and then there's another more expensive one that tunes up to, I believe, 2 gigs. And like I say, there's many forms of this. There are many people that sell these. I'm very interested in these. Let me go to one of these over here that's got the case and the knobs. So here's one with a case and knobs actually on those two tuning devices. I don't think I can zoom in.
Yeah.
But you can find these on AliExpress. You can find these. There's a ton of these on Amazon from different vendors, different prices, different cases. And there's a couple of videos on YouTube about them. And right now they're a little quirky. Now they do have a USB port for updating the software. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm really interested in one of these.
Yeah, me too. I hadn't seen these until you showed this to me the other day, Tom. And this is interesting because I've thought about this a bit myself. You know, like we play around with the SDR plays and the RTS SDR dongles, all that kind of stuff. You know, but you got to really kind of be sort of a hobbyist to mess with those. What this does is this brings the SDR technology into, you know, the hands of people that aren't necessarily hobbyists. They can play with the waterfall and the spectrum scope, and they can kind of start to really play with it, but they don't need a computer and have to learn all the software in order to kind of use it. I'd be interested to see how well these things perform. But like you said, it looks like there's one basic board design and then all these different, I don't know if you want to call them companies, but there's all these different options to have different cases and little antennas and knobs and things, but it's all the basic same underlying architecture, I guess. So yeah, it would be interesting to get your hands on one of these and see what it can do.
And this is a touch display.
Yeah.
So you can change the frequency by tapping on this frequency number here. That's a little thing that I've on the videos I've seen. It's a little quirky because this is only a 3.5 inch screen. Some of them even smaller. And so using your finger, you fat finger the screen quite often.
Yeah, I probably would.
So it's best to use a stylus. And they also said in the videos that I watched is that the screen itself is not as sensitive, say, as your cell phone. So sometimes when you tap, it doesn't react. So you have to tap kind of hard, not hard, but more than normal.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting technology, and I can see this building into other things. You know, maybe a portable radio with a little bit bigger screen that works a little better, but this is a good first step in getting an SDR out there to people so that they don't have to learn that software. They can just use this, and even though it's a little quirky and clunky, it's still probably easier for a lot of people than, you know, trying to load software on a computer and figure that out.
And this will, depending on which one you get, of course, but I think they're all the same because the circuit board is the same and the firmware is the same. This will work on AM, FM, shortwave, and I think, I'm not positive about this, airband and longwave. So it scans the whole band. And like I say, this particular model is 50 kilohertz to 200 megahertz, or the other model, which is more expensive, is 50 kilohertz to 2 gigahertz.
Yeah.
So it will cover all those, and it will cover those various modes, be it AM or FM. I don't know if it's single sideband.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really tell from the picture there. I guess I'd have to read through the descriptions, but still interesting. So let's see. I'm going to check my chat. Let's see. Radio Wild is in there. Good morning. Justin Time is there. Hello. Let's see. Radio Wild is saying you need a small child around to change the frequency. That might work.
Yeah.
Teach you how to use it too.
Little fingers, yeah.
So you got anybody in your chat asking any questions at this point, Tom?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool.
We can go back to the. Let me stop sharing, so you can go back to the slide. Okay, come on, get all these pop-ups.
Were you gonna? Did you have another tab you were gonna share?
Not on this subject, no.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So I guess that's what we wanted to talk about for the new radios out there. So if you have any questions about those radios, feel free to let us know. Go ahead, Tom.
I did have one more when I saw that Christmas deal.
Oh, okay. So I'll give that back to you. But anyway, as far as the new radios, if you have questions, let us know in the chat, or if you're watching this on the replay, leave us comments, and we'll try to answer those. But Tom's got a Christmas deal for us, so let's check that out.
Okay, let me go back to share. And I had one more tab. I think it was this one. Yes. Amazon right now has these combos, I'll call it. And what they are is they're under soldering kits. And what they have is soldering kits with a bunch of tools. I don't know the quality because I've not purchased any of these, but look down here. Here is a kit for under $25. It's got 4.6 stars out of 5, and it even includes a little cheapo meter, plus all these tools and this little carrying case. That's just one of them. Here's another one over here. So this is something I can say I have not purchased any of these, but you should check these out. If you need a soldering kit or a meter, some don't come with a meter, some do. I mean, here's a kit, no meter, $15.
Yeah, that's not bad. So this is great. I can see this being something useful for somebody that's not necessarily working on electronics every day. They just need something just in case something happens, or they have just a little project. It's good to have. Or if you need a secondary kit, for some reason, say you want to bring it along, you got a camper or something, throw it in the camper in case you got to work on your radio equipment. Or if you're just getting into electronics and soldering and you need to start somewhere, this is a good little practice kit, or some of these are good practice kits that give you everything you need to get started and then start to build your inventory from there. Go ahead.
So you could put this on your wish list for your kids or your grandkids, in my case, to give you for Christmas.
Yeah, that's a good point too. You get some older kids that want to start getting into it. This is a good kit for them to get started with too, and the prices seem pretty reasonable to me as well. Okay, so anything on that? Any questions or whatever? And then I guess we can kind of move along. So, all right. So, topic 2: solar conditions are improving. So let's talk a little bit about that and what that might mean for listening to shortwave or ham or anything like that in the coming months. So Tom's more the expert on this than me. I usually go to him for the solar weather, so I'm going to let him share some info on that too. But before I do, let me see. There's a comment in my chat over here. Let's see. Mike Scott says, I bought a bunch of solder project kits from Amazon. They are fun to refresh your soldering skills or to learn how to solder and remove components on a circuit board. Yeah, that's a good point. So if you've been out of it for a while and you want to do some practicing, but you don't want to spend a lot of money on a big soldering station or something, then those are probably the kits to get started with. Yeah, thanks, Mike, for chiming in. Okay, so if you don't have any questions in your chat about any of that, I guess we'll move on to the solar stuff.
Okay, now that you set me up and said I'm an expert.
More of an expert than me. But like we said in the beginning, neither one of us are actually experts on anything.
No, not at all.
So go ahead and you can share.
Okay, right here at soln.info website, they have, and I was searching for this a couple of days ago, I was trying to find one of these graphs on the solar activity that was up to date. Most of them were like 4 or 5 days behind. And so what I was looking for, let me move this down a little bit. What I was looking for is this peak that we saw about a week ago, 10 days ago, on the solar flux index, which the solar flux index on this page is this gray graph right here. So we were going along here, kind of down in the tubes here at solar flux index of 70 or below. And we wanted to be, as far as related to shortwave listening, we wanted to be above 100. And I know a couple of years ago when I first started my YouTube channel, it was above 200. So shortwave was fantastic. Shortwave listening was fantastic. So that's when I started my show. For the past 2 years has been down here in the mud. And consequently, shortwave listening has been really bad. And a lot of people say, well, shortwave is dead. Well, it's not dead. It's just that this is just one factor in listening to shortwave, is a solar flux index, which is an indication of the number of sunspots, active sunspots. And like I say, a couple of weeks ago, it peaked up and it got up to, I think, about 118. And sure enough, shortwave listening really improved, but just as fast as it went up, it went crashing back down. And now it's just like in the low 80s. So consequently, shortwave listening is not as good as it was when it was peaked up here. And of course, the other thing, there's a lot of things that contribute to your shortwave listening. Where you're located physically, like if I tried to listen to shortwave on a portable radio using a built-in telescopic antenna in this office, which has got all kinds of electronics going on, it's impossible. I have to go down to my workshop and use external antennas that are outside my workshop that are brought in shielded coax cable to keep the noise level down. So that's kind of where we're at. Hopefully, this is an indication that this is going to start slowly. The average will start glowing up, meaning typically shortwave listings conditions will improve. So you need to track somehow the solar flux index to see how it's doing. And this is just one page that has a nice graph. You can go to other pages, which I've shown on my channel before, which shows you the instantaneous solar flux index as far as when the sample was taken. And then there's a couple of places that I've shown you where you can actually sign up and it will send you an email like 3 or 4 times a day with what the solar flux index is at that time. And that comes from NOAA. That's all I had.
Okay, yeah. So I'll add some comments to that. I'm more of a ham radio listener and sometimes transmitter. I don't transmit a lot on ham radio, but I do listen quite a bit. So I've been noticing the same thing that Tom is saying here, is that conditions are improving. And what this sort of means for the ham radio is that as the solar activity increases, typically throughout the day too, what we have is the maximum usable frequency goes up. So a lot of times lately, kind of the highest band on the ham radio bands that has any like sort of DX activity has been typically 20 meters. But recently that's been going up. So I've been able to use 15 meters a little bit lately and make some contacts. I like 15 meters. It's not as crowded, and conditions are kind of favorable on that for more DX contacts. Same thing with 17 meters. It's starting to be kind of more usable these days. So as that solar flux increases, so does the usable frequency and sometimes the distances that you can talk as well. So that's sort of what I've been kind of keeping an eye on. In fact, what's even been happening is recently the 10 meter ham band, which is even higher in frequency, has starting to be open. So we can make contacts on 10 meters now too. And some of those contacts can be quite far with a nice low noise floor. And in fact, actually, I think this weekend there's a 10 meter contest. So if you're a ham radio contester, you might want to check that out if you don't already know about it. I'm not a contester myself, but I may throw 10 meters on later and make a few contacts just to make a few and see where I'm getting out to. Again, because the solar conditions are getting better. So keep your ear on the radio, whether you're a shortwave listener or a ham or anything, and you'll hear some more things than you've been able to hear for the last couple of years. I think on average, maybe not every day, but if you average it out, it'll start to be better. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, that's a good point you just made. Is that conditions can change so rapidly. And you may matter of fact, this morning I was listening to Radio Romania, and I went to do some checking on where it was coming from, where the transmitter was. And by the time I did that, it was gone.
Yeah, things will kind of fade in and out too. That's true. But as that solar flux index increases, that stuff will stay more stable as well, and you'll be able to hear it longer. But let me see. Let me check the chat here. We've got Marty, KM6PRA. He says it's a little early. I'm going to guess he's in California. Yeah, I'm sure it's a little early for you. It's we're on the East Coast here. We like to hold these shows sort of on Saturday morning, and we know it's a little early for the West Coast people, and we apologize for that. But this is the time that Tom and I have that's kind of syncs into our schedule together. So we apologize for it being early on the West Coast, but at the same time, we're able to catch some people in Europe, which Tom has sort of a bigger following over in the Europe area. So we're able to catch them. And so hopefully if it's too early for you West Coast people, you can watch on the replay. But yeah, it's hard to pick a time that works for everyone. So, but we appreciate you joining us and leaving the comment there. Let's see, Mower Junkie is in there. How you doing, Mower Junkie? Now, Mower Junkie, if you guys don't know, he does a great job on a CB radio related channel, and he's been looking at some of this solar activity too, with shooting skip on CB and making some DX contacts. So he's fully aware that things are getting better too. In fact, he's been showing that off on his channel. So if you're interested in CB radio, definitely go check that out. He's got some great stuff over there where he's messing with radios and antennas and checking out conditions. Let's see. Marty is confirming that there is a 10 meter contest going on. I'm not exactly sure when it starts, but sometime today I think it starts, and I don't know how long it lasts, but definitely check that out. Radio Wild is saying he's heard activity on 2017 and 15 as well. I've heard better DX on the AM broadcast band as well. Now that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I guess the solar index would sort of help broadcast band too. Maybe not as much as some of the higher frequencies, but definitely. Let's see.
Yeah, 31 meters is really picked up in the broadcast band. 31 meters. 31. Okay. Let's see. Marty is saying AM from Japan on 40. Well, that's pretty good. I don't think I've ever worked Japan, but of course I'm on the East Coast, so that's a stretch for me. But I know California and Washington and Oregon, you guys get into Japan when conditions are good anyway. It's a little easier for you. Marty says he got up early to try some DX. Yeah, sometimes that's what you got to do too.
is you got to watch the clock and see when that DX is going to be there that you want to chase. There's certain times of the day. Did I write it down? Somebody told me about a website yesterday. I was on the live stream on Jason's channel, and we were talking about that. And I thought I wrote it down. I'm going to have to watch the replay. I think Adam was talking about a website that helps predict some of that DX stuff. So I'll try to get that information and figure it out, because that sounded interesting. Like I said, I thought I jotted it down, but I guess not. So I'm going to have to head over to Jason's channel and watch the replay. Radio Wild says Zoom DX on the East Coast earlier Saturday morning. Yeah, that's what we're doing now, right? Zoom chat DX. And then Marty says he just subscribed to Mower Junkie. Okay, cool. You're going to like it. Mower Junkie's a good guy. He's got a great channel. Okay, so I'm caught up. You got anything on your end, Tom?
I have one. Mark Carter says, "I'm sorry I'm late."
No, nobody's ever late or early. No worries. Okay. There was one more thing I wanted to mention about the solar stuff. I saw it in the news, and I didn't really pay much attention here because I was working and stuff during the week. But I know towards the end of this week was a bit of a solar storm. And what'll happen is, even though the solar flux index is up and the sunspot activity is up, sometimes we'll get these solar storms where the sun just throws a bunch of energy, extra energy at us, and it'll actually screw things up for a while. And I think that's what happened this week. In fact, they kept reporting that here in Connecticut, we were supposed to be able to see the northern lights, or that we had a chance to see the northern lights. And every time that news article comes up, because it usually comes up once or twice a year, it never happens. I've lived in Connecticut my whole life. I've never seen the northern lights. So I think it's just hype or clickbait. But some of you guys that are a little further north, maybe you get to see them when that happens. But yeah, so we had that solar storm, which, even though the solar index was a little bit higher, it might have messed with things. I don't know if you noticed any of that, Tom. Did you experience any of that this week?
Yes, and since you mentioned that, there's two other indexes that go along with the solar flux index, and that's the A index and the K index. And they are relative to the noise you're talking about. So you could have a high solar flux index, but if the A and the K index is high, then you're not going to receive anything but noise.
Yeah, and that'll last for it can last up to a day or two usually. Yeah. I mean, they'll kind of mention it, but once that kind of passes, it'll everything will kind of go back to normal, so to speak. But okay, let me check the chat one more time. Let's see. KB1WQK, she said she tried to look for the northern lights. Of course, I'm not sure where she was when she was looking, but during the week, she lives next door to me, and then on the weekends, she's been going up to New Hampshire. She has a place up there. She's got a better chance of seeing them up there. So yeah, I was actually wondering if you guys happened to be looking while you were up there in New Hampshire, since you're a little further north, you got a better chance to see them than we would around here. But let's see. Marty is asking, what's Tom's channel? Tom's channel is Hamrad88. I forgot to put a link to it in the description below. I don't want to mess anything up here, but otherwise I'd drop a link. But it's if you go to YouTube and search for Hamrad88, you'll find Tom's channel. Okay, so anything else on solar index, solar flux, conditions, what to listen to, where to find it, that kind of a thing?
Not for me.
Okay. And KB1WQK said she was looking for the northern lights in Connecticut. Well, maybe someday we'll get a solar storm when you're up in New Hampshire, and maybe you'll see the northern lights up there. That was one thing I wanted to mention. I'm just going to take a quick sidebar just for my sister here. It came up last week. I was talking with some of the other ham radio guys, and we were talking about in 2024, there's going to be a total solar eclipse here in North America. And we were looking at the map as to where the area of the total eclipse was going to be. And I happened to notice that it goes right over your place in New Hampshire. So we've already planned a party for whatever it is, April 6th, 2024 or something. I forget the exact date. So we're going to be up in New Hampshire to see the total eclipse up there. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But, okay, so having said that, I guess I'm done getting sidetracked. So I guess we can move on. And let me see what we got in our agenda. Okay, so the third topic we had was radio plans or projects for 2021. Anything that we might be thinking about or planning to work on for the coming months or so. And of course, I don't know anybody else, but for me, a lot of times I put these plans down and then they immediately change. So, and of course, we never know what's going to happen with the world these days too. What we're going to be able to do and what we're not going to be able to do. So let me stop the screen share here and I'll turn it over to Tom. What kind of projects are you working on? You got any plans coming up, radio-wise or otherwise, for 2021 for your channel?
Well, two significant things that I need to address. Number one is my antennas. I have not maintained my antennas for over a year. So some of the coax that I'm using is 20 years old.
Oh.
So I need to replace coax. My two beam antennas, which are on a ASL, in other words, azimuth and elevation rotor, the rotor doesn't work anymore. So they're useless. So I got to either just take them down or replace that rotor. So I need to do a lot of antenna work. One of my not shortcomings, but one of my bad traits is I will get an antenna from a seller to review, and I'll put it up, but I'll put up temporarily. And unfortunately, it doesn't ever come down until it falls down. So I've got a number of antennas that are up on poles, and the poles are held against my fence with bungee cord. And I noticed the other day, about a week ago, some of the bungee cord, because they've been out in the weather, have actually broke.
Oh, okay.
So I did, which was probably the wrong thing to do. I did replace some of the bungee cord.
Hey, whatever works.
That's one of the two main things I need to work on is on my antennas. I do have a newer antenna. I got it 6 months ago, which is a loop antenna that works fantastic. But again, I did one of these temporary installs, and I used a 15-foot fiberglass telescopic fishing pole to put it up. So that's really temporary. And I need to get it higher because my second story is about 20 feet in the air, which blocks anything to the west of that antenna. So I need to get some poles, not fiberglass telescopic poles, and get that up above the house.
Is that the chameleon antenna? Is that what you got?
No, I got the Megaloop.
Oh, Megaloop. Okay. Yep.
Which now that is my best antenna. That and my 31-foot vertical from MFJ. Those are my two best antennas. I think my G5RV, which comes in this office here, which is the center point is on the tip of the second story. I think that the coax on that is 30 years old. I think I need to replace the coax on that because I noticed it's not doing too good.
There
The
you
other
go.
thing is, I've got a lot of radios, and the ones that I used are not well organized. I can't find the cables to hook up the antennas, and like right now beside me over to the right, I've got my RSP Duo, and it's just kind of sitting under the monitor, which is probably not a good idea. So I need to organize the radios that I use daily,
Yeah.
and get things set up so they're shielded away from other electronics. They got good coax going to them. The one thing I'm always frightened of is, especially in Florida, is lightning. And lightning doesn't have to strike your antenna. It can be close by, and that pulse from the lightning strike will feed into your antenna and destroy the radio. And so I try to constantly disconnect antennas when I'm not using them. Well, that's always a pain. So I need to get some protection on the antennas so that I can leave them hooked up and not have to connect and reconnect. So that's part of the organization I need to do. So that's the two things I need to do next year.
Okay, so I've actually got similar situation over here. I don't have as many antennas as you do. What was your last count? You've told me before and I forgot. Was it 14 or 16 antennas?
Oh, let me interrupt you for 1 second, Ron.
Yeah.
We were fighting this before, but when I'm talking, we're still seeing your big screen and my little tiny screen at the top.
Okay, and that's probably on your side.
Okay, which is fine.
Yep.
Because I don't want to show my big ugly.
Well, you're the other way on my screen. It's your big ugly mug and my little one. So yeah, something changed in Zoom. Before we went live, Tom and I were trying to figure it out. And it used to be that whoever was talking had the main screen. It would sort of flip back and forth, but something's different with Zoom now, and only one person stays up there. So either we have something set up wrong or Zoom changed it. But either way, I think it's okay.
So what I just did is I switched on my end. I switched Zoom to side by side.
Oh yeah, I've been doing that too, kind of periodically. I'll do the same thing.
Yeah, and now it does show up on my feed as a side by side.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I have similar projects here. But the first question I had for you, how many antennas do you have right now? I always forget your count. Is it 14, 15?
It was, the last time I told you it was 15.
Okay.
It's now probably 19.
Holy cow.
Now they're not all up.
Yeah.
Because we had a hurricane come close by.
Oh, I see.
So the ones that I could easily get down, I took down.
Yeah.
I haven't put them back up, and I probably won't, because they weren't the best antenna. But it was a situation where a seller would send me an antenna to review. I'd put it up, and then I'd never take it down.
Yeah. So my project's coming up. Same thing. I've got an antenna that was also temporary, but it's now temporary permanent. It's been up there over 5 years now. It's my main antenna. It's a 40 and 80 meter fan dipole. And one leg of it finally came down a couple of weeks ago. A branch fell off of a tree over there and took out a leg, but I put it back up. When I was putting it back up, I realized the wire was kind of brittle and the rope that was holding it up is getting a little stiff. I used the Dacron rope and everything, which is pretty UV resistant. So it's time to replace it. I have an antenna that was given to me by Don, W1FYG, who's sort of part of the ham radio YouTubers group. He gave me radio waves. I forget the exact model. It's a fan dipole that covers 80 through 10 meters or 15 meters. So it's got 5 or 6 legs in a birdcage fashion. So I'm not sure if I'm going to put that up here or if I'm going to do something different. Depends on how ambitious I get, how much time I have. But I need to replace at least the antenna because I've been wanting to do it for a while and just haven't gotten to it. But I think 2021 is going to be the year that gets either replaced with its current configuration, just the wires and stuff, or the whole thing comes down and I do something completely different. Haven't decided what yet. And then like you, I was starting to think about my coax. Now my coax is only about 10 years old, maybe 12 years old. I don't remember exactly when I bought it, but I was starting to think about maybe it's time to replace it because to your points on lightning, Tom, I don't have any lightning protection on any of my antennas other than where it's appropriate. The masts are grounded or whatever, but I want to put lightning arresters. I want to put a proper entry panel in since I'm also transmitting occasionally on ham radio. So I've been looking at and researching sort of the entry boxes that you put on the side of the house with the polyphasers or spark gaps, whatever you want to call them, that go in line with the coax. So the coax kind of feeds in and there's a little device it's almost like a glass tube. It's got some kind of inert gas in it. And what'll happen is if you get a lightning strike, it'll short the energy to ground and it won't let it come into your shack. What I do now in the summertime when we get storm season is I just disconnect all the antennas. But sometimes you forget, and that's not that great either because I had one disconnected one time and I got a pulse just like you were talking about, Tom. The lightning struck a tree in the backyard and I got an arc that came out of the center conductor of the coax and it burnt a hole in one of the manuals for my radio that was sitting on my desk where the coax was. I'm lucky that didn't start a fire, or destroy a radio or something. So lightning protection is something I've got to look at. And that's been sort of in my mind. And antenna work. But of course it's winter now in Connecticut. We've got a little bit of snow on the ground already. So that may not happen until spring. And it may not happen at all if some other things come up or whatever, who knows. So that's sort of project number one. And it's just like sort of what you were saying. Project number two is I've got some radio equipment here. Some new stuff. Well, it's old, but it's new to me. And you can kind of see it over my shoulder back there. If you've got a keen eye, I can't point the right way. But I got an old Drake TR7. And that was also given to me by Don, W1FYG. He inherited that from a Silent Key. And he knew I liked the old radios, so we made a deal. He wouldn't accept any money for it. So what I did is I donated some money to some charities in his name. And then took the radio over. So I just got that a couple of weeks ago. I haven't had time to go through it too much, but I want to take a look at that. Now I'm going to share a couple of pictures of it here in a minute. But before I do that, let me check the chat here and see what's happening. So who's over there? Let's see. So Marty is saying that he redid all of his coax and counterpoise connections a couple of weeks ago, getting ready for the rainy season. Yeah, that's good. And that's right. You guys don't get too much snow. Well, depending on where you are, I guess, in California. So Mower Junkie posted the link for your channel, Tom. So thanks for that, Mower Junkie. I put that at the top. Radio Wild said his place is too small for an antenna farm. It's more like an antenna condo. That's funny. Let's see. Marty's going to get some coffee. Radio Wild says 19 antennas. Yikes. Yeah, I agree. That's a lot. I think I've got 6 active ones up, and I thought that was a lot. Let's see. K5YYV, YVY is in here. Good morning. Thanks for stopping in. Let's see. Marty says 19 antennas must be a big yard or on the roof. Looks like a porcupine. I don't know. Do you have them pretty well hidden, Tom, or are they out in the open?
No. They're, yeah. It looks like a porcupine. They're mostly on the east side of my house, which is where my workshop is.
Now, are you in a neighborhood setting like that? So do your neighbors see them, or
Yes.
do they complain about it?
I've had people drive by and stop and knock on my door and go, "You must be a ham or something." I said, "Yeah, you got it." Yeah, I got those beam antennas for working the satellites. They're humongous.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And I have in my backyard on the ground, I have a 6-meter antenna that I've been swearing I will put back up. I brought it from my other home and I never put it up because it's huge. And I have a neighbor who's a handyman that helps me a lot because I can no longer get on the roof without falling off. And I give him a list of things I need help with, and that's been on the top of the list for a while. It's helped me with my antennas.
Well, if I ever make it down to Florida, Tom, I'd be happy to give you a hand.
Promises.
Yeah. We were supposed to go right when all this pandemic stuff happened. My wife thought she was going to get good deals on airfare, and then they shut everything down. So maybe after it's over, we'll make our way down there and come visit for a day. I'm all caught up. I'm all caught up on this chat.
How about a week?
Yeah, right. You got anything in your chat?
Yeah, I had the comment from Radio Sat X about the screen being small, and I fixed that. And Simon Temple said that fixed it, which it did.
Okay.
And then Radio Sat X says looks good now. So they prefer the big ugly version of me instead of the little tiny.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe they don't now. They saw me.
Well, let's see. Radio Wild says, you must be a ham or something. No, I'm just trying to catch wild birds the hard way. That's a good one. Okay, let me go back. I'm going to go and show your big ugly mug for a second here. And what I'm going to do.
Why would you want to do that?
Well, it's a means to an end.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm going to do now is I'll get back to talking about my projects here, and I'm going to show a closer picture of this nice Drake TR7 that I got. Like I said, I got this from Don W1FYG, and I'm going to make some videos on this coming up. This is a radio that I've kind of wanted for a long time. I've always been a bit of a Drake fan, and I've had some older Drake tube equipment. You guys probably saw that in the background, or if you've seen any of my videos in the past, you'll have seen me kind of reference it a bit. But I haven't messed with the tube stuff so much. That stuff kind of works. I dig it out once in a while and play around with it, but I really want to go through all that stuff, but I don't want to do it until I have the time to finish it, because I don't want those to turn into, a basket case where I take them apart and then get preoccupied with work or some other life event, and they just sit on the bench, and then I forget how it all goes back together. But the Drake TR7 is all solid state. And these were cool radios. Anybody who knows, old ham radio stuff knows that these were pretty top of the line for their day. And I've always wanted to get my hands on one, and finally the opportunity came up. And this one's a nice one. It's not perfect, but it's all in working condition. So it just needs a little bit of refresh, which is something I can handle for the most part. So, like I said, I just picked it up a couple of weeks ago. I've had it on the air a couple of times, and it all seems to work pretty well. But I want to go through it, clean it up, clean the knobs and switches, maybe try and get the service manual and do at least a little bit of a touch-up alignment on it, and see what I can do with it. But they're cool old radios. I like the old radios. There's just something about using these radios with knobs and switches and meters and dials that is just a cool experience, especially in the wintertime. I find myself, it's cold outside. I'm hunkered down in here in the night, staying up late, tuning around, that kind of a thing. So you're going to see some videos on this coming up on my channel here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So if you guys like the old stuff, you'll see it. Let me flip over to this view. Here's a view of everything that I got from Don. I have the main Drake radio itself. I got the PS7 power supply with it. And then it also came with an old Kenwood AT200 tuner and an SP520 speaker, which these units are cool because they made up with my old Kenwood TS520 that I have, which is a cool radio. That needs a little bit of work too, but that works really well. So these were what the guy who originally owned this used with this radio, but I may use them with the Kenwood instead. But they're what came with the radio for now, so that's sort of what I've been playing around with. And again, they're in great shape, maybe a little bit of cleanup, and they're good to go. So I'll have a lot of fun with those. And then just last night, I was talking with a friend of mine locally about the Drake radio, and he told me he's got the matching tuner in his shop that he has no use for. So I'm going to buy that from him, and I'll have the matching Drake tuner. So all I need now is the speaker for the TR7. I think it's the SP7. I don't remember the exact model number. And I'll have that full Drake lineup. So that's going to be sort of my winter project, is going through this Drake and getting it kind of cleaned up and refreshed and build up this Drake station. And then kind of like Tom said, reorganize the radio bench so that I have my normal operating position and listening position, and then have a second position for the Drake, so that when I want to do the vintage kind of radio thing, that's what I'm going to do. So those are my projects for 2021. Let me check the chat here. People are saying, let's see, Radio Wild says sweet. Marty says nice. Mower Junkie says that Drake is good looking. Yeah, it's in nice shape. There's a couple scratches on it, but that's okay. We can live with that. Marty says new caps. It might need new caps. I'm probably not going to do them unless I have to right now. I'm still working full time, so if I start taking stuff apart, sometimes it never goes back together because you know how that goes. So we'll see what it needs. If it's something small, I'll do it. If not, we'll work around it. Let's see. VU3MES ham radio channel. Hi from Chennai, India. Wow, thanks for coming in from India. I was going to ask the next question that Marty asked. What time is it over there right now? I don't even know. It must be tomorrow. I don't know. Let's see. KK5 Amateur Radio says, yeah, nice. Marty says, nice. Radio Wild says, hope you can find the speaker. Yeah, I'm going to keep my eye out for the matching speaker, and then I'll have the whole Drake set up there. That'll be kind of cool. And I wrote it down, and I forgot it. It's in my email. But when I do the video on that radio, I want to pay a tribute to the original owner that Don got it from. He gave me some background information on that guy. I guess I think he bought the radio new, and that was sort of his pride and joy. He didn't use it much, but when he did, he really had fun using it. So it's kind of an honor to get something like that from a Silent Key and kind of be a steward of it, and then maybe someday pass it on to somebody else who'll kind of keep it going and keep that old radio kind of on the air and in the hobby, so to speak. All right, so I've talked enough for now. What do you got, Tom? Anything else, or?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Well, let's see. We've been going for about an hour now, and I don't know. I guess we can wrap it up unless anybody else has anything else they want to talk about or bring up, that kind of a thing. Any projects you guys are working on that you want to talk about, or any suggestions for us or anything like that for the coming year? Feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll talk about it now. So anything on your chat there, Tom?
No. We're all caught. Well, I just got one comment from Simon Temple. I wonder if you can use Xenor diodes to protect receiver inputs along with a low voltage gas discharge tube to handle more power and higher voltages. I don't have a clue. Do you, Ron?
Xenor diodes. You might be able to use some Zener diodes, but I don't know if when you start putting Zener diodes in, how they behave at RF. I think sometimes those are used for transient suppression and things like that on sort of systems, but I'm not sure about RF. I'm in the electronics field, but I'm not smart enough to know the answer to that question. But the gas discharge tubes, I know those work for RF, and that's primarily what people use. But if you had just a receiver, you might be able to use the Zener diodes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that you couldn't use them with a transmitter, but
Yeah.
it was a receiver.
Yeah, or transorbs or something. I'm not sure, but that's a good question. I'll have to look into
Rob,
that.
you have any idea how much those glass discharge things cost?
It's been a while since I looked. They're a little pricey, and there's a couple of options.
I thought they were.
I think MFJ has some, and then there's just Polyphaser is the
Right.
sort of the name brand that everybody uses. But there's a few, I don't know what I'll call them, knockoffs, but similar product from different brands that might be a little less expensive, but they're worth it. Actually, my club, we put them on our repeater a number of years ago, and of course the repeater is up on a hill. The antenna's on a tower, whatever. And I guess there was a pretty good storm rolled through. Lightning hit the tower, and of course there's public safety dispatch, that kind of a thing up there. And all the public safety radios got wiped out. The only thing that was still working was our repeater, because ours was the only one that had the polyphasers on it. So they're a little pricey, but if you're in an area that's prone to lightning, then it's probably worth the investment. And I've been putting it off for a long time. So I think it's time to do it. And what's the saying? Buy once, cry once, kind of a thing. So I may do it, or I'll talk myself out of it because I'm a cheapskate. We'll see. Let me check.
Well, I probably do, because I've lived here in Florida all my life, and the only lightning that was near me was when I was a kid in my parents' home. It came down the TV antenna.
Oh, wow. You're lucky.
And we weren't there at the time. We were at our cabin. But when we came back home, we saw where it had caught the little wooden cabinet that the TV was sitting on. It caught it on fire, and luckily it's put itself out.
Wow.
But I've never, knock on wood here, had a lightning strike near me, my residence. But that's not to say it wouldn't happen tomorrow.
That's funny. Of course, you guys get a lot more storms than we do here. But when I was a kid, we used to get lightning all the time. We had a tree. My sister, if she's still in there, she'll remember. There was a tree in the front yard that would get struck or struck nearby, and it ended up, the tree was dropping limbs all the time and everything. We seemed to get a lot of lightning strikes when I was a kid. And then since moving into this house 11 years ago now almost, I've had two incidents. One was when I very first moved in, and we were only in here a couple of months. I didn't have anything set up. A storm came through, and there was a lightning strike somewhere real close. And I happened to come down in the cellar to unplug something. And my dog was still alive at the time. And we were by the cellar stairs over there, and I had just started going back up the stairs, and I could hear a crack. And there was an arc between my well pump, or not my pump, my well tank, and the center column in the center of the cellar. So the lightning had hit the ground and then jumped, and the dog was still on the concrete stairs. And I don't know if she felt it, but boy, I never saw her move that fast. She got right up the stairs, and then she was under the bed for the rest of the day. And then the second time it happened was a few years later. My son was little. A storm came through, and it hit. We had some big pine trees in the back here. It hit one of the pine trees and put a stripe down the side of it. Blew the bark right off of it. And that's the one where the impulse got my coax I was talking about earlier, and the spark jumped out of the end of the coax and burnt a hole in the book that it was laying on top of on the desk. So we've had at least those two. And then, like I said, when I was a kid, we seemed to get a lot of them. I don't know. I haven't really had that happen so much, but as when I was a kid. But yeah, I'm surprised you haven't seen more, Tom, being down there.
I am too, because we get a lot of lightning, and anytime the lightning starts, I will go on a web page that will show you on a map where the lightning strikes are, and they're all around me, but not in my location. Probably 5 miles circle. There's no light. I've never seen a lightning strike within that 5 miles, but hundreds outside that.
You must have an aura around you that fends.
I don't know.
Now, do you guys get lightning storms in the winter too? All year round?
Not very often, but yes.
Okay.
Not very often, no.
Okay, yeah. Once in a great while, we'll get something called thunder snow up here. You'll get 1 or 2 lightning strikes during a thunderstorm. Or not a thunderstorm, a snowstorm. But it's pretty rare. Let me check the chat here. Let's see. Oh, Don's in there. Don Izzo. You just missed it, Don. We were talking about the Drake. I was showing everybody the Drake and talking about my plans for it. Letting everybody know stuff that's going to be coming up on the channel. So, and you can probably see it behind me there, Don. He's the one that I got the Drake from. In fact, Don, I don't know if you saw the end of it. Maybe one of the guys locally that I talked to, a friend of mine, he's got the matching tuner. I'm going to buy that from him here soon. So I'll have a matching Drake tuner for it. It's going to be cool. So let's see. Marty and Don are talking in. Let's see. Radio Wild's checking out. Good to talk to you, Radio Wild. We got to get Radio Wild on one of these shows with us, Tom.
Yes.
He's a great guy. He does a lot of radio stuff. I think it would be fun. We're going to figure that out. Let's see.
We've made a giant leap forward, and we got both of us streaming.
Yeah. Let's see. Marty says 100 Watts on a Wire live is coming up this morning. Oh, okay. 100 Watts on a Wire is another ham radio guy. He's got a good podcast. That's Christian. I always forget his call sign, but he's got some great content too. He's been doing a YouTube show here too. So check that out if you're not familiar with it. 100 Watts on a Wire. He's on YouTube and he has a podcast, Twitter feed, that kind of a thing. Good stuff. There's a good group of people. He has a Sunday night net too, I think, that you can check into. I've got to do that one of these times. Let's see. Don says do it. He's probably talking about the polyphasers. Marty says lightning and snow. What's that? Yeah, he's out in California. Let's see. My sister says she remembers probably the lightning storms. She remembers that strike. Oh yeah, the one from the tree. Let's see. Todd Cam 4 OCJ is in there. Good morning. He's been concerned about lightning and how to correctly ground the antenna. We get lots of lightning here. Have had 3 or 4 trees with direct strikes in our yard. Yeah, that's, like I said, I've been lucky. Tom's been lucky.
Very lucky.
Like I said, now what I do is I disconnect my coax and put it on the floor in here. But that's not the best thing to do. So I'm going to come up with some entry panel.
I put mine in a glass jar.
Oh, that's a good idea. Let's see. Don says lightning strike coming out of the coax can cause a fire inside the structure. Yeah, that's what almost happened here, Don. I don't know if you heard the story, but I had my antenna disconnected, but I had it. I didn't know it was actually running through a switch, and there was a short jumper from the switch, and it was laying on my desk, and the manual for one of my radios was under it. And when I got that lightning strike, it arced and burnt a hole in the manual. Well, luckily, the manual didn't catch on fire, but it could have been a lot worse than it was. So I've got to get serious about that. That's why I don't leave the antennas just laying wherever. I put them on the floor now, so they're away from anything at least. Let's see. Tom shouldn't have said that. Oh, he's probably figuring you jinxed yourself with the lightning, Tom.
I know. That's what I said. That probably knock on wood,
Let's see. Don says he'll watch on the replay. He's busy at work. Yeah, well, I know he gets some downtime at work and he's able to kind of jump in on these streams. But yeah, make sure you keep the boss happy there, Don. Don't worry about us. We can't stop lightning. We want to attempt to direct it back to ground. That's exactly right. You really can't stop it. You can't predict it. The best thing to do is just try and follow best practices and get it to where it wants to go, which is the ground. Okay, so I'm caught up on this side. You got any chat over there, Tom?
Yeah, I got a few. Greg White says, don't use Zeners. Use pin diodes in the front end of a receiver.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, pin diodes.
And then Simon Temple says, I've noticed on eBay that some folks sell crystal kits with discharge protection tubes fitted.
Crystal kits. Wow.
Yeah.
Greg,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, crystal kit usually is sort of a low-end thing. You wouldn't think it would come with the discharge tubes, but well.
Yeah. Greg White says, but even they can cause intermediate problems, which degrades RF performance.
Okay.
Simon Temple came back and said, just read up on pin diodes. They look good. I just read up on pin diodes. They look good, less than $1 a piece. He's in the UK. Greg White comes back and says, all lightning protection is done outside the house. If it comes inside the house, kiss your radio gear goodbye, because it's too late to do anything once the high voltage comes in your house.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and that's what I want to work on here. Is I want to get that what I'll call an entry panel, so that it's all done out there, and then the polyphasers are out there, and it directs out there. In fact, a friend of mine who, similar situation to me, he doesn't have any lightning protection on the coax like that, but he has a first floor shack. What he does every night is he disconnects his coax and he throws it out the window and lets it stay out there. Let's see.
And lastly, I got Greg White says, also Scotty diodes can be used in the front end. And then Mark Smith says, howdy, Tom. Howdy, Mark.
Okay, Schottky diode. I'm going to have to look into that and see. I need to learn more about my radio theory and that kind of a thing.
You know, you bring up a good point about throwing the cable outside. Probably one thing I could do is actually do the connection to like have a panel, like you were mentioning panel, where I can just disconnect the coax part that goes into the house. And that way the coax cable ends in that panel outside.
Yeah, that'll work too. And what I've heard some people do is instead of the discharge tubes, especially if it's a situation where they're not using the radios that much, they'll have a switch in the panel where it'll switch the coax to ground. You know, there's a position where it just directly goes to ground and it disconnects the connection into the house. So it's basically like shutting it off, I guess, but grounding it at the same time is another technique.
I've been hesitant to do that. I have a couple of two-position switch with the center position connecting the center of the coax to ground if you connect it to ground. And I've been hesitant to that. I'm like, is that actually making the antenna a lightning rod because you've got it grounded? So I've been hesitant to do that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now that you mention it, it kind of, yeah, it could, I suppose. It gives it that easy path. But maybe that's what you want. I don't.
Well, but the thing is, I'm thinking is you don't want to purposely attract the lightning. You know, the lightning is looking for a ground, and the higher up your antenna is, the shorter the distance for the lightning to get to the ground.
I've always been confused about that too, and maybe you see them down there in Florida, but I haven't seen them so much here. But more when I was younger, a lot of houses would have lightning rods installed on them. So, at the very top of the house, you'd have 2, 3, 4 spikes sticking up, and there'd be ground wires running down and into ground rods. In fact, my dad's house had them. The ground rod is still there, but the lightning rods were taken down in the 90s when we had the roof redone. But I always wondered that too. Does it just ask for problems? And actually, now that I think about it, and my sister's still in the chat, maybe that's why you don't get the lightning strikes anymore at the house, because the lightning rods are gone. Now that and this is interesting because
that's what I'm saying.
Because I grew up in that house. My sister still lives there in that house, and we were always getting close lightning strikes. And then in 92, 93, we had the roof redone, and they took the lightning rods down. And I can't remember a lightning strike coming near that house ever since then. But she lives there now, so she'd be able to say better than me. But that's interesting. That's food for thought for sure. Somebody with a higher pay grade can chime in and let us know. But I certainly don't know the answer. Let's see. Todd Cam4OCJ, he says, I've been unhooking the antenna from the entry to the house and moving it away from the house, but that's a pain in the tail. Is there a better way? Yeah, that's what we were talking about, Todd, is the gas discharge tubes or polyphasers. So I can't remember his call. K0LWC. He's out in the Midwest somewhere. He had a nice video about a month ago. He upgraded his entry panel, and he showed how you do it. Basically, you run the coax in from your antenna, and it goes into a box on the side of your house. And inside the box, there's sort of a grounding bar, bus bar type of thing. And in that bar, you have the gas discharge tube mounted. And the gas discharge tube goes in line with your coax, and it's got a third screw on it that connects to the ground. So under normal circumstances, when you're transmitting and receiving, the signal just goes through. And it's part of your coax. But if a lightning impulse comes through, it shorts the ground through that high resistance short, basically, and protects all your stuff so that you don't have to disconnect it. And those seem to be pretty effective. I mentioned earlier, my club has them on our repeater, and they seem to help up there when the storms come through. And they put them on airplanes and stuff like that to protect the aircraft. I worked at a company that made electronics, and one of the projects we worked on were those, they called them spark gaps, but they were just a bunch of those gas discharge tubes that went in an aircraft somewhere to protect the aircraft if it got a lightning strike and short some of that energy to the fuselage, kind of a thing. So they're effective. Let me see what else I got here. Boy, there's a lot coming in now. Sorry I was late. Oh, no problem. No problem. Just replaying the happy hour from last night. Yeah, that was a good time on Jason's channel. Let's see. Sorry for the questions, but this is all new to me. That's okay. You didn't see the beginning, but Tom and I, we always like to tell everybody we're not experts. So some of these questions are great because it sparks discussion amongst everybody so that we can all kind of chime in, and maybe somebody is an expert out there on a certain topic and we all kind of learn from it. So we like the questions. Definitely don't apologize for that. It adds to the discussion. That's part of the fun here. Let's see. Mower Junkie says he's going to install a coax connector next to his radio that will send lightning directly to ground. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. And I know Mower Junkie's down there in South Carolina, so he's sort of getting close to like your area, Tom, where he probably gets a lot more lightning than some of the rest of us in the northern climates. Let's see. Make RF with W8BRY is in there. I'm in the club of throwing the coax out the window. Yeah, that works. It's you just have to remember to do it. That's the only problem with that. Let's see. Don says he remembers his grandfather using heavy-duty knife switches. It will still jump the switch or no switch. The heat voltage temperature is so extreme. And that's a good point too. Some of those MFJ switches, probably like what you were talking about, Tom, those could probably, melt
Yes.
or whatever. It's better than nothing. And a lot of times if you just have the pulse type lightning strike, like you mentioned before, Tom, nearby strike, it'll take care of that. But a direct lightning strike, you'd probably need something like a knife switch. And even then,
Well, that's the thing. Even then, a lightning strike, and Greg White just mentioned it in my chat, it'll jump those gaps.
yeah,
And, if you're just using a knife switch, it'll just arc right over. And the best thing to do is get that coax disconnected and outside.
yeah. Let's see. Todd is saying, does the negative static buildup on the antenna make it attract lightning more than grounding it, or does grounding it bleed off the static and make less attractive? It's been my big question. Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know that it makes the lightning any more attractive, but you can get issues with static buildup on your antenna. And we notice that here in the northern climates, especially in the wintertime when it's really cold out and really windy. Depending on your antenna surface area, you'll get static buildup on the antenna, and it'll start to discharge a little bit, just like if you were to, walk across a carpet and touch a metal frame door or something, and you get that little zap. You'll get that effect on your antenna too, and you'll hear it in your radio. It won't really necessarily hurt anything, although it could. If you have a sensitive front end, it might damage some components, but typically it's low enough energy where it doesn't necessarily hurt anything, but it'll make your receiver noisy. So grounding is a good idea for that, because it keeps that potential low, and it keeps that static from building up on your antenna in the first place. So I can't fully answer your question. Maybe somebody else knows, but it's a good idea to keep that static off just for better receive performance in the first place. I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
I don't know either, and luckily we don't have that problem too much, because where I live, it's damp all the time, so that discharges any static.
Yeah, you don't have the problem in the first place, but
No.
But yeah, in the wintertime you'll hear it a little crackly and things. Let's see. So where am I? Oh, I lost my place. Okay. Let's see. Mower Junkie is saying lightning rods align electrons in the air, so lightning will strike elsewhere. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that one. Let's see. My sister says we had them on the house. You beat me to it. Yeah, we definitely had them on there. I know the grounding rod is still there next to the electric meter, or at least it should be, unless Dwayne pulled it out. But I used to hit that thing with the lawnmower when I was a kid. Let's see. Don shared us a link for something here. Link above, excellent info. My sister said we did get lots of strikes. Let's see. Todd says, doesn't that box on your house still draw the lightning to the house? A direct hit to the house in any way seems it would be very dangerous. Yeah, and that's sort of what we were saying. Lightning is sort of unpredictable, at least for those of us who aren't physicists and meteorologists. Maybe some people understand it better, but I think what the box does is it gives that energy that might be coming down your coax, whether it's a direct strike or a nearby strike, it gives that energy somewhere to go before it comes into the house. Now, if you get a direct strike, all bets are off. I mean, things are going to heat up, things are going to melt, things are going to catch on fire, whether you have a box there or not. Like, if your house just gets struck or whatever. I think but what happens more often than not is you get those nearby strikes where the impulses travel either through the ground or through the air, and it's not quite as intense as a direct strike. I don't know that you can really protect yourself from a direct strike at all. I mean, I don't know. I've got to do some research. on that. I'm not qualified to really be talking about the subject other than speculation, really. But yeah, I think the intent of some of those gas discharge tubes and things are to protect you from the lower energy events. The full on strike is a different story. I think a lot of times what'll happen, at least what I've heard, if you have a direct strike on your antenna, your coax will act as a fuse. It'll just melt and blow out and hopefully protect, that way. But I'm not sure. Let's see. KB1WQK says, not any, like you said, since the roof was done in the early 90s. Yeah. So I'm starting to wonder about that. If those lightning rods did more harm than they did help. Or maybe the weather patterns have just changed. I don't know. It could be possible too. Let's see. Doc Rolfson says, there ain't anything you can do if lightning hits. It goes where it wants to. Ask any fireman. Yeah. That's pretty much what I've heard too. Let's see. Don, who is a fireman, he says, lightning wants to go back to ground. It will use the path of metal, wood, tree, anything. Yeah, the key is it's the path of least resistance, right? So we just don't know what that least resistive path is going to be most of the time. So I think the whole point of the polyphasers and the lightning rods and things like that are to give it that low resistance path so you can predict if it's going to be there, where it's going to go. Hopefully through those metal grounding systems instead of some other thing like your body. Let's see. Lightning arrestor will bleed off static. That's true too, Marty. Yeah, those lightning arrestors will also help to bleed off the static. Let's see. Todd says he gets so many storms in south central Kentucky. I think I'm going to just keep unhooking and moving the antenna for now. I'm enjoying listening to and participating in the conversation. Well, we love having you in here and asking these questions. Like I said, it gives us something to talk about other than ourselves. So, and then Don says, lightning will travel through tree roots in the ground and continue to travel. I have seen the burnt marks in the direct grass. Again, the voltage and the temperature is so intense. Yeah, I've heard of that too, where, it'll follow that. In fact, there's a guy in my club. He grounded all the trees in his yard. I think he put spikes in them and put ground rods next to all the big trees. I don't know if it helped or not, but I know he did that because he's concerned about it. So, all right, I'm caught up for now. I've been talking a lot, Tom. Anything on your end?
I have one more from Greg White. To prevent static buildup on antennas, especially very long wires, I add a 10K to 50K resistor to ground at the feed point. The radio won't see the resistor, but the voltage won't build up.
That's a good tip. I've heard stuff like that too. Yeah.
And I'm all caught up.
Okay. So I'm caught up too. So yeah.
This has been good.
Yeah, it's a good discussion. It's getting me thinking. Hopefully it's got all of you guys thinking too. We'll do some.
One thing that I thought of when you were talking about different people that were in your chat that had a YouTube channel, we should probably do a show on other people that have YouTube channels on the subject we're talking about.
Oh, that would be a good
give them a little, plug.
That would be a good topic. And we sort of talked about this offline, Tom. I've thought about maybe trying to do, get more than just you and I on here, kind of like what we do with the ham radio YouTubers bunch, but get not that any of those guys wouldn't be welcome, but get some of the other channels that you and I kind of interact with on the radio stuff, like Radio Wild and Radio Geek and some of the others that aren't coming to mind right now, and do more of a group chat with those guys and talk about that stuff, because they have great channels and great perspectives on things too. Get a round table going and get everybody with the chat too, I think would be good. So we'll have to talk about that coming up maybe after the holidays we can kind of schedule something and figure it out from there, sort of a radio roundtable. But I like your idea too, Tom, where we could just kind of go through and talk about some of the other channels that you and I kind of watch and get information from. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. And there's some that have been around a while, and there's some new ones
Yes.
that are up and coming. So
Yes.
I think that would be a worthwhile show for everyone. I think
Hook
you're
it
right.
up.
All right, so what do we got? Let's see. Doc says, good job. Don says, love this topic, sharing ideas and learning. Yeah, that's what it's all about, at least for me. Just sometimes the more I talk, the more I learn from you guys. But that's probably, we've been going an hour and a half now, maybe a little more, so it's probably good enough time to put a pin in it here and wrap it up and get on with the day. I got to go throw some more wood in the wood stove here and do some Christmas stuff upstairs, I think, with the family. What do you got on the table for today, Tom? Any good big plans?
No, this was the biggie of the day, and I totally amazed that we got it to work.
Yeah, I'm glad we did. I think it's great that we've got it on both channels here, kind of going out simultaneously. That way, people on your end that don't necessarily know me can join in, and vice versa here. So it's been good. One of these days we'll get really sophisticated and figure out how to join both chats together, so we can each see the other's chat. But we got to walk before we can run. So all right. I guess that's where we're going to wrap it up. I'll say thanks to everyone that participated in the chat. 7-3 to everyone that applies to, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. We don't keep a hard schedule, Tom and I, on these things, but we try to do these at least once a month if we can, usually on a Saturday morning. Seems to be a good time for both of us, and hopefully it's good for you guys too. Grab a cup of coffee and start your day with us, and and then take it from there. What do you think? Any final thoughts, Tom?
No, I just want to thank everybody for showing up to the live feed, and you can also watch the recording after the fact. And I would thank Rob for setting. Rob did all the setup. I was totally confused, so thank Rob for doing all the setup, get this thing working.
Yeah, no problem. We got through it, and it worked. I thank you for joining me, Tom, and doing these shows in the first place. I'm not a live streamer on my own. I don't mind doing it when I have somebody to talk to like you, Tom. I think it makes for a better show than me just kind of talking to myself. So anyway, I guess that's it. 7-3. Again, thanks everyone for joining in, and enjoy the rest of your day, and happy holidays to everyone out there. 7-3.
So long.